My parents kicked my kids out in the rain, just so their golden grandchild could have the spare room. They didn't know I was holding the one thing that could turn their perfect little world upside down. Before I tell you how, hit that like button, subscribe, and share, because what you're about to hear will make your jaw drop. I'd driven over to my parents' house that night because my heater had broken, and my kids, Eli, 8, and Grace, 5, were shivering. But the second I stepped inside, my mom's smile froze. "Adeline, you can't stay here," she said flatly. "We need the room for Ethan." Ethan, their perfect grandson, my brother Jacob's spoiled 10-year-old. The same boy who once smashed Grace's favorite doll and laughed, "But it's freezing outside," I pleaded, clutching Grace's hand. My father just shrugged, his eyes cold. "Ethan needs comfort. Your kids will be fine in the car." The words cut deeper than any winter wind. I wanted to scream. To tell them that the life they thought I had, struggling, broke, dependent, wasn't real anymore. That the Adeline they thought they could push around was long gone. But instead, I swallowed my rage, turned away, and started planning something they would never see coming, because in less than 48 hours, the same parents who shoved my kids out into the cold would be begging for my help. And when that moment came, I'd make sure the entire family was watching. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Grace coughing in the back seat of my car. I'd parked outside a 24-hour diner so the kids could at least have something warm for breakfast. Every bite they took just made my chest tighter. My own parents had a house with 4 bedrooms, 2 guest rooms, and a heated basement, but they'd rather let their golden grandson stretch out than give my children a safe place to sleep. As I poured coffee, my phone buzzed with a text from my brother Jacob. "Don't make a scene about last night. You know Ethan needs stability." Stability? This was the same Ethan who had 3 gaming consoles, a horse riding hobby, and a room stuffed with toys he never touched. My kids were sharing a blanket in a freezing car, but apparently his comfort was sacred. What Jacob and my parents didn't know was that I'd been quietly building something for the past 5 years. Every late night I worked after the kids went to bed, every extra shift I picked up, none of them knew where that money went. And that secrecy was about to pay off in the most delicious way. By noon, my mom called. Her voice was tight, almost shaking. "Adeline, you need to come to the house, it's an emergency." For a moment, I considered ignoring her, but curiosity won. When I pulled into their driveway, I saw my dad pacing the porch, Jacob on the phone looking pale, and Ethan peeking from behind the curtain like he was watching a drama unfold. My mom rushed to me. "Your father's retirement account, something's wrong. The bank froze it. We can't access anything." I kept my face neutral, but inside, a spark lit up. Oh, this was better than I'd imagined. I'd overheard Jacob brag months ago about convincing Dad to invest most of their savings into his business ventures. And I knew exactly which account he'd funneled that money into, because it just so happened that I was the silent majority shareholder in the company. He thought he controlled, but I didn't say a word. Not yet. I just stood there, letting them squirm, while my kids sat in the car watching the same grandparents who threw them out suddenly look very, very small. What they didn't realize was that I wasn't here to help out of kindness. I was here to make sure the tables turned in the most public, unforgettable way possible. And I already knew the perfect stage for it. 2 days later, the perfect stage presented itself like fate. My cousin Lily was hosting her annual family dinner, one of those events where every relative dressed to impress and bragged about their year's achievements. Normally, I avoided it, but this time I RSVP'd yes, without hesitation. When we walked in, the room fell into an awkward hush. My parents were seated at the long dining table beside Jacob, all smiles for the crowd, as if nothing had happened. Ethan sat front and center, showing off a brand new smartwatch, the kind that cost more than my month's rent back in the days they thought I was struggling. "Adeline, you made it," Lily said warmly, though I could feel the sideways glances from the others. My aunt leaned toward another guest and whispered just loud enough, surprised she showed her face after what happened. I smiled politely, taking a seat with my kids beside me. But my mind wasn't on the food, it was on the small velvet folder tucked inside my purse. Inside were documents that could change the hierarchy of this family in seconds. Halfway through dinner, Jacob raised his glass. "I just want to say how grateful I am for my parents' support this year. Thanks to them, my business is thriving. And Ethan here," he patted his son's shoulder, "is top of his class. Laughter and clinking glasses followed, but I noticed Dad's smile falter, the stress from the frozen account still gnawing at him. That's when Lily, oblivious to the tension, chimed in. "Oh, Adeline, what have you been up to? Still, working at that little place?" A few people chuckled. I leaned forward, voice calm but sharp. "Actually, yes. That little place is part of a company I now own 60% of." I slid the folder onto the table and opened it, revealing the official shareholder documents, signed, dated, sealed. Jacob's face went pale. That's impossible. I thought you were the only one with shares?" I cut in, my tone steady. "You convinced Dad to invest his savings into your company. The same company that was quietly acquiring more investors. The same one I've been buying into for years." The room went dead silent. My mom's hand trembled as she set her fork down. "Adeline, what are you saying?" I smiled, savoring the moment. "I'm saying that your golden boy here works for me now." Gasps filled the room, but this was just the first crack in their perfect little facade. I had one more card to play, one that would not only change the family's pecking order forever but make them regret every single cold night they forced my kids to endure. Jacob's jaw tightened, his voice shaking. "You think this is some kind of game, Adeline? You can't just—" "Oh, but I can," I said, leaning back in my chair. "And I already have." I reached into my purse again and pulled out a slim, white envelope. Inside was the notice I'd had my attorney draft yesterday, an official termination of Jacob's position as CEO, effective immediately. "This isn't legal," he snapped, standing up so fast his chair scraped the floor. But I could see the panic in his eyes. He knew it was legal. He'd never read the fine print when he sold those extra shares to anonymous investors years ago. He just assumed no one could outplay him. My father slammed his palm on the table. "Adeline, stop this right now. You're tearing the family apart." I met his glare without flinching. "No, Dad. I'm making sure my kids never have to beg for a place to sleep again. You made your choice when you put Ethan's comfort over their safety." The relatives were eating up every word. Whispers rippled through the table. "She owns the company? He's been working for her this whole time?" Like wildfire. Even Ethan's smug little grin was gone, replaced by confusion. I turned to Jacob one last time. "Effective tomorrow, I'm moving the company headquarters out of state. You can either come work under my terms, or you can clear out your desk." Jacob's mouth opened, but no sound came out. My mom's eyes darted between us, searching for a way to salvage their image. "Adeline, please, maybe we can talk privately." "No," I said firmly, standing up and gathering my kids. "We'll leave it here. I think everyone's heard enough." As I walked toward the door, I felt every pair of eyes on me, not with pity anymore, but with something new. Respect. Fear. Maybe both. And I wasn't done yet. Because the final part of my plan? That was still to come. And it would make sure they never dared to look down on me or my children again. The next morning, I put the last piece of my plan into motion. It wasn't enough for Jacob to lose his title, or for my parents to feel a few hours of embarrassment at the dinner table. No, I wanted the truth burned into their memory so deep that every time they looked at me, or my kids, they'd remember the day everything changed. I arranged a company-wide meeting at the largest conference hall in town. I made sure every shareholder, employee, and family member received an invite. Even Ethan was brought along, still clutching his smartwatch like it could protect him from the fallout. When I stepped onto the stage, the room went quiet. Jacob sat in the front row, his arms crossed, my parents flanking him like human shields. But there was no shield for what I was about to drop. "Good morning," I began, my voice steady but laced with the kind of confidence they'd never seen from me before. "Most of you know me as Adeline, one of the smaller shareholders in the company. What you don't know is that I am now the majority owner. And as of today, we're restructuring." I gestured to the giant screen behind me, where the company's growth chart flashed. Profits had doubled over the last 2 years. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. Then the next slide appeared, showing Jacob's name struck through in bold red letters. Below it, "New CEO, Adeline Harper." The crowd erupted into applause, but I raised a hand for silence. "Before we move forward, I think it's important for transparency's sake that everyone understands how we got here. Years ago, Jacob approached our father for a large investment, money taken from my parents' retirement account. He promised to grow it. Instead, he sold controlling shares without understanding the terms, assuming no one would be smart, or determined, enough to claim them. He was wrong. Jacob shot up from his chair. You're humiliating me in front of the entire company. I locked eyes with him. You humiliated yourself when you thought you could take what wasn't yours. When you thought my kids weren't worth the warmth of a spare bedroom. And you humiliated this family when you put your greed above everything else. The room was silent except for the click of cameras, because yes, I'd invited the local press. My story was going to be everywhere by tomorrow morning. Then I turned to the final slide, a photo of Eli and Grace, smiling in our new home, a 5-bedroom house I'd bought in cash last month. From now on, I said, my voice catching just enough to sound human, this company will invest in people who work hard, not people who believe they're entitled to everything. And my children will grow up knowing that no one, decides their worth but themselves. The applause that followed was deafening. My parents sat frozen, their faces pale, and Jacob looked like he'd swallowed glass. Ethan just stared at the floor, the smugness gone completely. I walked off the stage, my kids rushing to meet me. I scooped them into my arms, feeling lighter than I had in years. This wasn't just revenge, it was justice. And as I left that hall, I knew one thing for sure: they would never forget the day the worthless daughter became the one holding all the power.